My name is Esther Posner, and this is my story. Rabbi Menachem Mendel Morgenstein of Kotsk. For the believer, there are no questions. For the skeptic and agnostic, there are no answers. I came to the United States with my parents in January of 1948. And whenever my mother introduced me, she would say to whoever it was, she's a little Dutch girl. And it wasn't until many years later that I found out that I was not Dutch by virtue of birth in the Netherlands, but that I was born staatenloos, which means stateless. My parents were, they had fled Germany and come to the Netherlands. My father in 1933 when Hitler came to power, and when he could afford to support her, he had called my mother and told her to come, and she came in 1936 to Amsterdam also. And they got married at the Chief Rabbinate. Afterwards, my parents walked home through the marketplace in Amsterdam, back to the store. My father was a kosher butcher, he had a butcher store. And as they walked through the market, they were looking at the fresh fruit. They got married around May of 1936. And there were cherries there, 5 cents a pound. And my father said to my mother, I can't afford it this year, but next year I will buy you cherries. And he did. And they went back to the butcher store, took off their leather shoes, put on their work shoes, and went back to work right after the wedding. I was born a year later into a very loving family. There were a lot of German Jews around. My father's 4 sisters had also left Germany, and they were single women. My grandfather, my father's father, both parents were there. My mother's parents came a little later after Kristallnacht. And a lot of people from Germany, when they fled to Holland, came to visit my parents because they knew them from back in the old country. So it was like a large group of friends and family around me as the only child. I had a very happy childhood in Holland. We went out for ice cream, we went to the movies, went to shul on the Lekstraat, and had a lot of friends. Just a very lovely lifestyle as people lived in the late 1930s. The Germans invaded Holland in May 10th of 1940. By this time, my mother's parents had come and they moved in with us. And shortly after that, my mother's sister, who had married my father's partner in the butcher store, and they had moved in with us also with my little cousin Ralph. And their apartment had been hit during the invasion. And so they didn't have any place else, and they moved into our apartment. So I really grew up with an extended family, 8 of us, my parents and I, my grandparents, my mother's parents, David and Dina Westheim, and my aunt and uncle, Alice and Zichbert and Ralph Milshinsky was their name. Last summer, I went back to Amsterdam with my sons, Aryeh, Hanan, and Danny, and they wanted to actually be in the places where the things had happened during World War II. They wanted a better understanding of what it was all about. What we decided to do is spend a couple of days in Amsterdam and spend a full day in Enschede, because Enschede is a town where we were hidden. And I decided that I would try to take them to all the actual places where we had hidden and show them where the hiding places had been in the homes. And I knew that the people actually were not living anymore, but I would try to find their descendants. I used to come here to play with the children. We walked through the woods, and we would come, and there was the castle. And it had been taken over by the Nazis. And they had some kind of a headquarters here. I didn't know, but they would come up with their jeeps and their tanks, come to this drawbridge that we see here, and that's where there was somebody checking everybody in and out. I and the boys and I would hide in the rhododendron bushes. I think these are rhododendron bushes right here.
In these
Yes.
rhododendrons right
Yes.
here.
Yes.
This close to it.
Yes.
How long did you play for?
We hid, and then, I don't know why there are no flowers on. Hello. Herman? Yeah.
From the newspaper here in this area of Holland.
Oh, okay.
And I will write a story about your visit here.
My
And your
experiences,
history,
yes.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to meet my son.
Yes.
Daniel,
Tell us
I don't
about
know.
what life was like here when you were in this house. Who were you around? What did you do every day?
Okay. So I had a friend who lived down the street. Her name was Marijtje. And she and I would play out. It's such a pretty area. We played outside a lot.
You said that Ula was here first.
Yes.
Do you know how she ended up coming here?
Okay, so we started off from the first place we were hidden was Kleinja. And when we had to leave there and we were all spread out, she probably came here immediately. And I had a place in between. Because the underground arranged all that. I just have to tell you one more thing, guys. People ask me, somebody just asked me this, when they knew that I was going on this trip with you, they asked me, so did your mother, I can just imagine your mother sitting you down and saying, we're going to have to separate and you'll be on your own, but everything will be fine and all that. And I said, no. My parents never had to say anything like that or be a good girl or anything like that. The last thing my mother said to me, no chazer. No chazer, which is don't eat bacon. It was the last thing my mother said to me. Number 3 is I slept upstairs, and I think I even slept in this room right here with Tante Ulla.
This is the room that you lived. This is the room that you lived in.
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yeah, just the room I slept in the Orla.
In the Orla, yeah.
In the Orla, yeah. Shalom Abed. I was standing here doing the dishes because everybody was downstairs in the basement. We waren allemaal beneden.
Ja.
En toen mijn vader heeft geroepen, kom naar beneden.
Ja, ja.
En toen is ze gekomen en 5 minuten later is hier een grenade. Right here, I think there was a hand grenade.
Ja.
Grenade.
Ja.
Ja,
Weggehaald.
ja, weggehaald.
Danke. Thank you so much for letting us hear this. Thank you.
My father was in seventh heaven because they let him work out in the plot. He had to kind of make sure they didn't see his black hair, that he wore overalls. He looked like a farmer. And he worked in the plot that was the family's plot. And for him, after having been hidden for almost 2 years, this was a fantastic experience. While I was there, it was so much easier to remember. The details just came to me, and here I have to think about it more. We went into hiding in May 25th, 1943, which was very late. My Aunt Ula had gone into hiding in October or November of 42 also. And it was about 2 years after Julius had died that this Dutch policeman came to the house, and then he took her to the Kleinjan house. Finally, when we did have to go into hiding, when we did go, we got to Enschede by train, and somebody from the underground took us on the train, and she had false papers for my parents, and then from the train station, Dick Moss picked us up and took us to the Kleinjan
The
family.
first hiding.
The first hiding place.
And this is where Dick and Ree lived during the
This
entire
was their
time
house.
during the
Yes.
war.
Do you want to tell us the story about this house?
You know, this doesn't look at all like what I remember. I mean, when we
were
came
back
to the
here.
Kleinjans, it was a very happy time. We were so happy to see Tante Ola, and my grandfather was also hidden there. And everybody had come downstairs, and I didn't realize it, but this was the first time that I went into hiding. And we spent all our time in that small room with the door closed, where the hiding place was, that one wall with the bookcase in front of it. But there was an attic in that house, and upstairs, a flight up, my father and mother and my grandfather slept there. There was a bell system in the house also, that was just for that room that we were hidden in, and that there was either one or two or three. So one was somebody's in the house, so be careful. Number two was all clear, and number three was go into the hiding place. They were a little bit down the street. We all went into our hiding place, and we stood there and we waited, and then we heard them bang on the door, and Yopi opened the door, and they said, "Where's your husband?" And she said, "He's in Germany working." And she let him in, and they came, and my father said, if they knock on the door, if they bang on the door, they'll find out that where we are is a false wall, and they'll know that it's a hiding place. But they never banged on the door. They just, somebody came in the room, we heard them come in, we heard them go out. And my father staged the attic also. There was, he took toys and he threw the pieces around on the floor. There was a swing there that he hung down. It was 2 ropes with a plank, and he just let it hang down, but askew, so it looked like one of the children had been playing up there. And he took all our blankets and pillows that we were using, and there was a chest there, and he put it into that chest, and put a tablecloth on top of it. And so it was staged to look like it was a playground for the children. Kids' room. I have to say that throughout my hiding experiences, the people who took care of me, who were there for me and helped me, they made me feel very special. They made me feel that I felt safe with them, and I felt that we would get through this war, and we would be back to the way things were before the war. You know, of course, that's what everybody who went through it was hoping. These are my sons. I have 3 sons. I have a husband who's alive. He's back in the United States, in our home. This trip would be too difficult for him. So we are making a movie of it, and he will be able to see it and meet everyone from the movie. And also I have, thank God, 11 grandchildren, and I'm very proud of them, and they will be able to share this story. So I want to start with a special blessing that we say in Hebrew when we have an experience like this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this time. That I thank God who has allowed me to experience and to live to this day and to meet with all of you again.
Lord, you lifted my soul from the grave. You spared me from going down to the pit. Sing to the Lord, you, his devoted ones, and give thanks to his who lives.
Thank you all for coming. It's It's really a pleasure to see all of you here. We very much appreciate all of you coming here today, and we appreciate all that your families have done for our family. And that's really what today is about. It's really our giving thanks back to you and to your families, and to understand a little bit about the history of our family and how our families have come together, especially during the war. What we plan to do today is to talk about my mother's memories of each of your families, each of the rescuers that helped her and her family through the war. And we'll ask each of your families to accept a small token of appreciation from us, and that will enable you to show, the courage of your families. The families that you come from, your ancestors, and some of you lived during the war, are some of the bravest souls that we could ever imagine. These are people that really, they had the courage and the bravery to help people that they didn't need to help. This plaque says, presented to the family of Jan Dirk and Maria Antonia Mas, with gratitude for their actions. In the face of grave danger to themselves and their families, they protected the lives of our mother, Esther Marianne Rose Posner, and the Rose family during World War II. We can never fully express our unending and undying thanks.
In recognition for the heroism that Dick and Remus did in defying the Nazis during World War II, they were presented with a set of cufflinks from the Queen. When they came from the Queen of the Netherlands, when they came to my bar mitzvah, they brought that and gave it to my mother. And then about a number of years ago, my mother gave it to me. And I had it in my family room, presented, and with a little plaque that explained the cufflinks and the relationship between my mother and our family and the Mosses. And they shared a Thanksgiving meal together. And I felt that it was really your family's, because it was your family's heroism for why we're all here today. So we wanted to give it back to you to be with your family.
And the next family that we'd like to join us up here is the Kleinjan family. Kleinjan family. With gratitude for their actions, in the face of grave danger to themselves and their families, they protected the lives of our mother, Esther Marianne Rose Posner, and the Rose family during World War II. And whoever saves one life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world. Presented to the family of Simon and Wilhelmina Tilsma, with gratitude for their actions, in the face of grave danger to themselves and their families, they protected the lives of our mother, Esther Mariana Rosa Posner, and the Rosa family during World War II. Presented to the family of Franz and Anna Spitz, with gratitude for their actions. In the face of grave danger to themselves and their families, they protected the lives of our mother.
Okay,
Esther
this is something
Mariana.
I wrote. It's called The Tablecloth. 2 weeks after I turned 6 years old, my parents and I went into hiding. And while we hid, my mother worked on her tablecloth. When I speak to school audience about my Shoah experiences, I say, my story is the Anne Frank story with a happy ending. I went into hiding with my parents, and we survived. We had come to the Kleinjan home in May of 1943. During our time there, my mother took out a tablecloth she had started to embroider during the early years of her marriage. There were large sheaves of yellow wheat, white daisies in a bold satin stitch, cornflowers in royal blue, and poppies that made a bright, deep border around the perimeter of the cloth. When my mother worked on her tablecloth, she often had a ring of admirers and advisors watching her work, and even the underground workers. Everyone watched her progress and fell in love with the pretty pattern and colors.
May 25th. This was probably the last transport out of Westerbork to Sobibor.
And if we hadn't escaped, we would have been on this. My mother had packed 1 or 2 changes of clothing for each of us when we escaped to the Kleinjan home. Where in her small suitcase did my mother have room to bring along an embroidery project? And then the answer came to me. After having to leave all our possessions behind, my mother had the emunah that she would survive and again have her family to take care of and a table that needed a cover. And the reason my family and the underground workers watched her work progress with pride and admiration was because they all understood what the tablecloth represented, the future. I treasure my mother's work. I especially look at the poppy that has some mismatched yarn and remember how she worried about running out of thread and using what was available. But above all, I treasure her faith in our survival and continuity.